This is Eric Keith with the Quintessential Gentleman. How are you?
Hey, good man. How are you?
Doing good, doing good. First and foremost, amazing performance in the film. Really, really enjoyed it. So, congratulations.
Appreciate it, man. Thank you.
Of course. So, I just want to know what was it about the script that made you interested in the project?
Well, I read the Walter Mosley novel years ago when I was in high school, and it was interesting because I grew up in D.C. and back then it was Chocolate City. I don't know how much now, but it was a group of people who were working professionals who were you know lower to middle class, but people who were sort of striving for more, and sort of made that city percolate and tick, and that culture was important. And so, like when I read Walter's novel, Mr. Mosley's novel, um, I saw that beautiful kind of historic black enclave of Sag Harbor, Nineveh, Sands, Azores. Like that was a community started by these incredible black women, that had people who were familiar to me. And Charles was familiar to me. This kind of brother who is kind of rudderless, and I was interested in that. I was curious about that. I was like interested to go on the journey that is like, I think sometimes people are scared to like take risks, and I understand it in this day and age, but like it's like the thing that challenges you, you sort of run towards. And I didn't quite understand this man, and I'm like, how do we tell this story about this dude who's sort of kind of likable, he's gone through a lot of trauma, but he also inflicts pain and trauma on other people, and he's running from stuff. So how do you reckon with that, and how do you make that active, and all of that? And so I just got curious about it, and I was like, yeah, this is a character study I want to kind of see this black body, sort of these black bodies exist in a different way than we normally do.
Yeah, it's interesting. It seems like you were excited about Charles, the character's imperfection, right? Like, and how
Yeah,
he's like dealing with that. It was very
yeah,
interesting.
yeah. His flaws and his like, because how often do we, we see trauma when we tell stories that are centered on, a particular black experience, but it's not this particular trauma. I mean, he's dealing with psychosis, he's dealing with loss, he's dealing with mental illness. And how do you talk about that without talking about it? How do you reflect that in ourselves, so that when you put this movie down, you're so uncomfortable, and you go off and you think about it, and you're like, oh, and you see those bits of Charles, of Narcissus, of Aniston, of all these different characters in your own life.
Yeah, yeah. When I definitely did not expect to see what I saw, right? I just thought it was like, oh, okay, it's in the basement, something crazy, and it's like it's so deep and it's so rooted in so many other things that it was
Yeah.
very interesting as you followed the journey.
Thanks. Yeah.
So even speaking about that and talking about characters, how do you avoid judging characters that you play?
It's a good question because I mean I certainly came in, with a little bit of judgment for with Charles. I mean I think the sort of only answer, and because you can't do it when you're have you can't truly sort of excise or like get in there without finding love for that character. And so I think that was the biggest thing throughout the rehearsal process, doing all the work, really understanding. And me and Nadia like teased it out just because you sit with this man, right? You see him standing and making a cup of tea, but do you see the weight of it, and everything else that's underneath him? I always equate it to like Sag Harbor is surrounded by water. The Hamptons are surrounded by water. These are, it was a whaling village years ago. So that's what they, they all swim, and they, nature is a big part of it, and water was a big part of it for me because it's about, Charles sort of floats through life, kind of forming to whatever else at this point in his life. I think when he was young, football star, you know, of his team and like all of that. But now he's lost his parents. He's about to lose his home. His uncle's died. Like, you know, he's just he has no money. What do you do? Where do you go? And he's still not the nicest person to people who are trying to love on him. And I think that is a defense mechanism of his, and you have to get under there and kind of understand it. And I think again, it's still water, man. It's like that current is still flowing down here, but sometimes you have to keep the face, you know, to keep from sort of breaking. And I think that's the tension we're wrestling with in this movie, and that's what Aniston is kind of pushing him to break. And you see him, you know, hit that ceiling. That's where that psychosis kind of comes in, because he's unpacking a lot, you know. But you got to find the love in him, you know, because this guy exists. You walk past him every day on the street, and you know you don't know what he metaphorically has in his basement, what people are dealing with on a day-to-day basis, like, you know. So yeah.
Sad for sure. So another theme of the film is kind of legacy. I wanted to know, how did the film make you, or did it make you kind of reflect on the idea of legacy specifically for you?
Uh, yeah, you know, I think obviously, like, when we talk about heirlooms and like what gets passed down, our stories are a part of that, right? Like, we come from the griot tradition of like storytelling and those heirlooms, and we live in a world and time where, you know, people are trying to rewrite history and rewrite stories. And I don't, you know, obviously don't think that should be allowed. I think we should be able to um, we have to honor that, because past is present is future. And especially in Sag Harbor, and I talk about this a lot, but land is not just land, and especially for the Black community in America, and especially descendants of enslaved people. Like, there's a disconnect sometimes between us and our original home, or whatever that is. And I think land is the land we live on, the land we inherit is not just land, it is survival. It's that inheritance. And I think, you know, trying to disconnect yourself from that can be, it can be a choice. It's like you either choose to carry that history, or you choose to be unburdened by it. Both are choices. And you know, you kind of, Charles needs the money, you know, but he also has these heirlooms that connect him to who he was. And how does he reckon with that? Like, how do you reconcile that? And I think by the end of the film, he might find the journey there, but you still don't know, you know?
Um, you know, I think that your co-star, Willem Dafoe, I mean, he's intense, intense.
He all right. He all
It's
right.
going I want to know, was there any particular scene that his intensity kind of challenged you, or where it was kind of y'all were like at this point where you're playing off each other, specifically kind of an intensity piece? Because there's some scenes that I even see, I'm like, oh, this is real, y'all going at it. I would love to get your thoughts.
Yeah. I mean, every scene with him is first of all a joy, because I'm a student first, and and he is too. So he's like, we're constantly learning off of each other, and so yeah. I mean, every scene in that basement, that language down there, is very different from who he is upstairs, and so like, he's constantly like, they're just wrestling, man, and they're trying. It's always like that gamesmanship, like somebody's leaving here, somebody's leaving here with something. Like, you know, it's that like, who's on top, you know, who's the top dog, who's the underdog, like, and you watch this thing go from like this dude who just wants to rent his basement for this, you know, for a period of time, for whatever reasons, to this kind of unpacking of humanity and good versus evil. And it's crazy that the story kind of gets there, but Willem just kind of, it's like a tennis match, you know, or ping pong, or like, you just constantly trying to get in there, and he's trying to get in, and Nadia encouraged us to just play in that way, man. So it was a lot of fun. I mean, I don't know if fun is the right word, but it was a lot of uh, fun for an actor for sure, you know.
Speak about Nadia. This is her directorial debut. I want to know what
Hmm.
was it like collaborating with her on this project.
All I wanted to do was just encourage her vision, man. Like, she had a very clear vision of what this story was for her. It's an adaptation. It's her adaptation of this novel. So interesting with novels because, like, I read a novel and there's a whole movie in my head of what it is. Like, I've cast the characters in my head of, like, but it's always going to be different from person to person. And so people have a connection to the novel, but Nadia had a very specific connection as well, and she knew what the story that she wanted to tell. And so as an actor and as a producer on the movie as well, wanted to we all just wanted to make sure that her vision was supported wholeheartedly. And I'm just grateful that she kind of um, was able to take the story and imbue it with what like she changes the time period, which I think opens the story up to sort of the geopolitical worldview going on. It's just incredible what she's been able to do. She comes from the theater, so we all share a theater language as well too. So it's just great. She's just I'd love to work with her again. Like every day was like, why not? Like let's just ask the question. And if it works, it works. If it doesn't, it doesn't. But like you can't be scared to just like take a chance and like go there with the film um, and make people uncomfortable or not make people uncomfortable, but get people used to sitting in the uncomfortable, I guess. Um, so that was exciting, and I'm excited for her directorial debut, feature directorial debut, and her debut here at TIFF.
Awesome, amazing. Well, that's my time. Thank you so much. And again, congratulations.
Appreciate